Kind of rusty. Okay, here we go. Hi.
Hi, how you been?
Good, good, good. Thank you for being here. And from another zero, I've been wanting to talk to you on any of the platforms that we have over here and share your gorgeous talents.
Mm,
So I'm gonna do like a little snippet intro, but then you're gonna take it away. So
amazing, amazing.
David Reynoso is like a royalty in the theater industry, like designer,
Oh,
artist, creative, extraordinaire. But now dabbling into the museum world as well.
yes.
So,
Hmm.
who are you? Where are you from? What you do?
What do I do? Who am I? Who are you? So,
Yeah.
hi everyone. Yes, I'm David Reynoso. I was born and raised in Guadalajara, in Mexico, and I lived there till I was 12. And moved to the States to San Antonio. Went to school in Boston,
Mhm.
and when I went to study in Boston, at Boston University, I studied scenic design. Um, Lo and behold, my career, as you mentioned, has taken many different sort of turns and surprises. I also do set design and costume design,
Mhm.
and I've sort of started dabbling in. Well, I would say dabbling. I've been now working with museums for quite some years now. I started doing exhibit design for the Museum of Us on a couple exhibits for them,
Oh,
and
okay.
then I did Living with Animals and Post Secret for
Mhm.
them, and then yes, recently had an opportunity to do an installation uh, at the new Children's Museum called Teatro Piñata, which is
Mhm.
inspired by um, sort of traveling theater wagons. And I love piñatas as well. And it was through kind of work that I've done with the company Optika Moderna, which is a company in which we create bold experiences that allow people to peer through the eyes of another. And a
Mhm.
lot of the projects we've done through Optika have been about sort of either re-examining sort of familiar stories, or in particular, we did a project of Waking La Llorona and Las Quinceañeras. This idea of like taking topics that maybe people feel like maybe they might know some about, but giving them a new lens and allowing people to
Mhm.
see it through a new perspective.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's all across like the country. Obviously, we are now in San Diego and mainly your work is happening in San Diego. And today, well, you are in this play.
Yes.
Your designs are in this play to the Yellow House at the Playhouse. And also this one. I have
Yes.
everything. Ebenezer Scrooge's big San Diego Christmas show, which is the one that we're
Yeah.
talking about today.
Yeah.
And I did a little, oh, okay. So I mentioned in the it's up on the blog. You can check it out there at from anotherzero.com, zero as a number. And I was saying that because the Globe has the two Christmas shows
Mm,
um in different spaces, I say
yeah.
it's kind of like Disneyland with Disneyland theme park or Disney California Adventures.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
You
Exactly.
know,
Different
right? Like
flavors.
exactly. Both are good, but one is like funner, let's say, for adults, which is this one. It's hilarious. It's like practically an hour and change, and you're you
Mm,
know you're done. So
yeah.
that's really cool. And I did a little slideshow here.
Look at you. Your slideshow
A
looks great.
little
Yeah.
slideshow. So can you tell us like what's your inspiration? Obviously, this is about a Christmas Carol, right? Which is
Mm,
such a classic. Yeah, such a classic, and it's I don't know what the 1800s or whatever.
mm.
What is? How do you inspire? Like, what's the process? Do they come to you and say, "This is the play. Like, this is the time where the story is being developed. Go."
Well, I mean, I think I always try to describe what I do as my role in theater as being a bit of kind of a three-dimensional illustrator, much in the same way that there's like within like a kid's book, there might be the story, and then there's illustrations that go with it are just as important, right, as the text. And
Mhm.
so yeah, it always begins with the story and the script and the setting and where it takes place. So what's interesting about this production in particular is that yes, it is based on the Christmas Carol, And yet it's a bit of a mashup in the fact that it has its own kind of universe that it's created, and the fact that Gordon Greenberg, who both directed and wrote this, um, created this sort of alternate universe, if you will, in which Ebenezer Scrooge and his story takes place during the San Diego, California exposition, right? Where kind of Balboa Park sort of was born. And so it doesn't sort of necessarily live in Dickensian times, much in the way that you think of when you think of traditional Christmas Carol productions. It kind of goes a bit more into the early 1900s, closer to when the time of the California Exposition. And so, but it's important, right? That it still feels like a Christmas Carol, that it has elements to it that you feel like, oh, it's got the things that you know and love. And also, what it's really wonderful in this alternate universe, it gives permission for there to be these very kind of anachronistic, kind of modern things that then kind of seep in that are just absolutely silly, really funny. And so it kind of, you know, and the fact that it is a play that, and a story that does travel through time, and you can see the future and the past and all that.
Yeah.
It kind of gives us permission to be able to do that too. And these interjections of things that feel kind of very current and things that feel from another time.
Yeah, totally. And it's, I don't know, it's so aesthetic. I feel your vision. It's always so beautiful and so high level, like classy. I don't know, like yeah, because everything I see that you do is like, oh my God, he did it again. Like how is it? I don't know. Is it an eye thing? Is it a training thing? Is it like you take from everywhere? How do you nail it?
Gosh, no, I mean, it's interesting. I've never, thank you for saying those really kind words. I really appreciate them. And I don't, I mean,
I'm showing the people, look, like it's not me.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think about like my childhood, my mom has always been someone who really appreciates aesthetics. And for her, that really feeds and nurtures her soul. And I think as a kid, I absorbed that a bit, right? This idea of kind of like, look how nice this looks when it goes together, or like, oh, like the idea of kind of really putting effort into the way, not only the things you might experience something on a visual level. And I think that probably I absorbed from her. And I find, you know, I think sometimes aesthetics, we tend to think of them as just being strictly about being decoration. And certainly things can be pretty just for the sake of being pretty. And also things can be beautiful and kind of enrich our experience of something. And I think about that with design, and especially for costumes or sets for a theater, or I guess even exhibits, is thinking about, I don't know, there's something about how it makes us feel to see something that's kind of either in harmony or something that's sort of like in dissonance. The things that maybe when you want things to feel really like, oh, there's a weird tension. Maybe it's nice to have things that feel like, oh, there's an interesting kind of dynamic in there that things don't feel harmonious. And then there's some things that feel like, oh, I just want some eye candy.
Yeah.
But I think it's ultimate. I will say nothing ever happens in a vacuum. It's not just strictly me. It's happening in collaboration with my other creative team. And so with this production, Adam Carr, who did the set design, he and we worked together on really making sure that both, like, you know, he brought all these plaids to me and thinking like, okay, here's the plaids for the dress forms. Like, how do you feel about this? And I was like, well, funny enough, here's some plaids I'm thinking of doing. So we wanted to make sure that things feel like they had some harmony to them, and in terms that it felt like all one visual sort of story. And what's really cool about this production is that it invites and sort of celebrates things that feel very improvised. And there's a bit of a kind of a DIY quality to it, which in a way that feels charming, you know, that it feels like, all right, we're going to layer this costume piece on top of this thing. You know, we're going to have, you know, canned fog, and then we're going to have, you know, something, this puppet. And it allows for it to just be really fun in a way that invites the audience to play along. And I think for something that's as meant to be as kind of funny and kind of full of comedy as this, you want to bring the audience along with you. If you lose them, then they're not going to find it funny. And instead, you want them to really feel like they're the ones really filling in, and for the things that just aren't present, I guess, on
Yeah,
stage.
exactly. And then I also see, like, with the ghost, obviously the story that you mentioned, you have the ghost of Christmas present, past, and future.
Yeah,
There's like tool involved, right?
yeah,
What can you take me down that creative path
yeah. That
of the
path,
tool? Yeah.
sure. I mean, I think for me it was important that there would be something kind of that visually signaled, all right, there's another ghost, there's another ghost. And I think, I mean, you can certainly do that in many, many ways. And it feels
Yeah.
like almost like a very obvious one to do this. But I thought, well, we do this from a level in which it feels kind of like very kind of like silly, with kind of the Ghost of Christmas Future. But
Hmm.
then that kind of like tool layered element, um, we take it to kind of an extreme when we have sorry, the Ghost of Christmas Present, I should say. And then when we take it to the Ghost of the Christmas Future, the kind of the more kind of ominous ghosts that make their appearance. And what's interesting about that, what I love about Tool, is that there's, in certain ways in which it's lit, you lose a kind of like sight as to what's kind of holding in place. It has like a wonderful structure
Hmm.
to it, so light comes through, and also because of the fact that it is meant to be almost like, I don't know, it has a spirit of it that almost feels like when someone's putting on a play in their living room, like kind of like, all right, and now, there's something about that should feel like, all right, come with us. Yes, her dress is a Mary Poppins inspired dress, but then it has tulle over it.
Hmm.
You're gonna love it, promise. This kind of idea of like it's gonna be fun, and we want you to sort of come with us on this imaginary journey.
Hmm. And then the one, because you can hardly see it, and then we're gonna talk. I mean, and then I'm not
Yeah,
spoiling anything because these pictures are up on their website, so we're
yeah.
fine. Because I'm like, and I have to talk about it. I am sorry, but there's, and I also posted that on the View, that the
Mm,
Ghost of Christmas Present has this like very stylish, very present, right?
yeah,
Like with the times, like baby
yeah,
pink denim
yes.
jacket, right? And it has
Right,
rhinestones in the back that says
yeah,
present, and then it has
present, yeah.
tulle on top of it. I'm like, oh my god, they should sell this in the shop. Like, I imagine that in, creative rights and all these
Totally.
things,
Yep.
it gets complex. But hey,
Mm.
I said it here first.
Let's do it. Let's
I
do
would
some
wear
merch, some
that.
Scrooge merch. Well,
I
it's in it,
would
and
wear that.
that is a huge compliment because you're very stylish. I think what's cool is it had to be it. If we're talking about the Ghost of Christmas Present, it should
Mhm.
feel like, well, what would someone wear now? And then how do you then apply that to someone wearing something from the early 1900s? Um, and then also, how do you make it ghostly? So it felt like, all right, I guess the layering there is like kind of the layers of the cake. Or yeah, certainly you've got the established base costume of something that feels from the early 1900s. The jacket feels very current, and it's baby pink, or sort of, and then it's got the rhinestone letters. But then, oh right, she's a ghost, so let's throw some tulle on it, so then it feels a bit sort of fuzzy, and when the light hits it, it starts to feel like it's got something about it that feels a bit more of the air, if you will, and mysterious.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Totally. It's that gorgeous, gorgeous piece. And then, because I know that we
Yeah.
are pressed for time. So, but I do please, please tell me what's going on. Like, this is,
Oh my God.
you hear the audience gasp when
Mm,
they come out with this, because
mm,
obviously the tree,
yeah.
unfolds or whatever. But then they come out and they're playing. It's a whole it's overwhelming in a good way, because
Yeah.
everybody feels warm, fuzzy. Everybody has been
Yep.
laughing for an hour.
Yep.
But then they come, they're singing and they're playing instruments, they're doing it
Mm,
well, and then they have these gorgeous pieces. And I'm sorry,
yep.
obviously the women, you know, that are getting more attention, because look at this. So this is, and then
Mm,
they have like the little mistletoe or the whatever it is
yeah,
on
on
that
their
hairpiece.
headpiece.
So
Totally.
tell me about this, because this is just, it's magical. I love it. So
Well,
what was the idea behind this?
I think a through line in the costume design, you might see it in some of the pictures, is that there's a lot of plaid, right? There's a sort of plaid that sneaks
Yes.
in. And so then when it came to this idea of like, Gordon and I were talking about like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if the women, when they came out, they were wearing skirts that felt like Christmas trees. So, all right, that can be interpreted in many, many different ways. And then I had this idea of like, I think I saw piles of like swatches, just like pieces of fabric. A swatch is like just a piece of fabric that you cut out, and when you just want like a sample of it. So I saw like just a couple pieces of it sort of stacked up, and I thought, what if like the texture of it was just created from a bunch of different scraps of fabric? And so I bought all these plaids. The costume shop, they dyed it in kind of shades of green. They cut up all these squares. Then they applied them to these, crinoline tiered skirts. And then, suddenly just festooned them like trees. And the fact that we had this like, these kind of ball fringe and kind of like these like other kind of ornaments in there. And it just, it wanted to feel homespun, homemade, but like in the most delightful way. Sometimes that idea of something, that I think sometimes when we think of something that's like homemade, you sort of think like, oh, it's you want it to feel like it's got all the love and heart of someone sort of being there in their home, being like, well, okay, I've got this, I've got this, I've got that, and then the result of it is this kind of joyous moment. That really is what's happening in this picture. It's a time of celebration. You've heard this story, and then here we are getting to kind of congregate, gather together, celebrate. We had a great time, and I just wanted to be exuberant in a really playful way. And it was an experiment, and I'm really happy with how it came together. So, and they wear them well, those performers.
That too. La percha, like we say in Spanish, right? That's good. And obviously, we're seeing the character of Ebenezer Scrooge with kind of like a beach onesie because it's in San Diego. So, we have beaches here. He's going to go surfing.
Well,
exactly.
And I wanted to like, he, wanted him to feel like a candy cane. And so I think this idea of it being kind of like, he
I'm
just
slow when it comes to those things.
Oh no! So you've got you got the Christmas trees, and then something have him. And I think he throws, or did before, kind of candies out into the audience.
He does.
So the idea of like, all right, that it's such a departure from what we've seen him wear this whole time. It's very kind of stuffy, very serious thing, and then suddenly to see him in something that feels kind of like a bit ridiculous, but you still believe that, okay, I can see that was what a bathing costume might have looked like.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love that idea. So for people that are starting out that don't know kind of what doors to go knock on and all these things, what would your advice be?
Doors to knock on to see the show, or what do you mean? Or to get into the business?
Into the business, like people that want to design younger, or maybe older. I mean, it doesn't have to do with age. But
no, it's. I mean, I was. It's interesting. I was just reading something about Stephen Sondheim, who just passed, but it's about how like the greater portion of his work really came later in sort of in his 40s, and also we think of kind of Julia Child, the work that she created. Happened sort of. I started to be known as it was later in her 40s too. So yes, no matter where you are in life, if there's something that you want to take action in, getting into theater, I think what I love about theater is that it's a place that at its best, it's a place that welcomes many voices, and is a place that's meant to collaborate. And I went the route of getting some training in set design. I took some costume courses in college, but it was not something that I feel like I sort of really thought, well, I'm going to be a costume designer one day. But little by little, I think through either finding out opportunities in the theaters that were in town where I was living, like, hey, can I help out? Or do you think that maybe there's opportunity for me to pitch in? Like, I want to be able to learn more. I think that curiosity, if you have it enough that it maybe you can, like you said, knock on the doors or ask people who are in the business. I think if you're a curious person, that curiosity might come back and open opportunities for you. So yeah, it's a kind of very general question, sort of answer that question, but I think I would say that what I love too is that when I think back of my colleagues and when we talk about how it is that we got into theater, no story is alike. And it's not like there's a pattern sort of to follow, like step one, do this, step two. But I think what's kind of a through line through everyone is that there's a general kind of passion and kind of, like I said, curiosity that everyone had to to want to be a good storyteller in the best way that they could, whether it's through lighting design, whether it's through costume design.
Mhm.
I think, becoming really familiar with the idea of how do you tell a story on a visual level is great for design. I think as a performer, if you want to be a performer, think about that. How do you tell a story effectively,
Yeah.
through your voice, through your body? If you're a musician, if you are, if you're the person who wants to be the playwright, I think there's talents that are at play when you go to see a production, and it's easy to forget all that's happening backstage in order to make that happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's the story and then the expression through the art form. So there's no better
Mm,
way. And
mm.
you know how to do it well, my friend. And congratulations again, because
Yeah,
it's just a nice, it's a nice trip. It's a nice trip. So
I feel very
because
lucky.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's create your path, again, we see
No,
these
it's true. We
gorgeous
do, don't we?
pieces, but yeah, it is also
It's
right
that
place, right time.
intersection of opportunity and what we
Exactly,
do with it. Yeah,
exactly.
sure. I agree.
And
Yeah.
because you're a very busy person, and they told me to be respectful of your time,
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. No.
I am gonna tell people. Well, okay, so you can catch him like currently if you're in San Diego, or if you're, LA, Orange County, and you're close. Please drive down and check it out. You can check him out at La Jolla Playhouse. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous pieces, and the play that we talked about, because it's not a musical. It has music, but
It's
yeah.
a play with music, right? There you
A
go.
play with music. Ebenezer Scrooge's big San Diego Christmas show. And I had so much fun. It's a hoot. So I'm very happy that they're doing this in contrast.
And doesn't it feel good to like laugh and get a chance to sort of like be out and
It's these like you get giddy, and it's like, I don't know. It's just very fun, very fun. I think they did a really, really good job. And again, and the puppet and certain things that you're like, oh my God, what are you doing? Why am I laughing?
It's just so silly.
Exactly. It's super silly, but at the same time, like you mentioned, the artists are so good and they deliver. Well, like you said, it's like a whole team effort, but you're making them look good when they're already good. So, and just there's something about a period piece that you're like, gasp.
Feels nice to
It feels nice.
Travel through time a bit.
Yeah. And then there's like a standing bed, you guys. It's like, I mean, and there's like Velcro involved, and it's, oh my God, you're like, the way that they made this happen, in order for it to be also fast and funny and make sense and everything. And the theater is in the round. So they have to kind of go around in order for everybody to get the effect. So that is also fun, right? When it's your turn and you get it. So that's really props, because it's not easy, and it has to be said and recognized. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Anything that you would like to add before we go?
I mean, I'm just so grateful. I think if anything, in addition to kind of like I mentioned my work with both these theaters, which I love and hold as my kind of creative homes. I've got a company, Optika Moderna. We're working on a few other projects, so stay tuned for those if you're interested. We do a lot of what kind of falls under more immersive theater work, but I think also pushing the boundaries of what theater can look like. So please, if you're interested, you can go to check out our website or follow us on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Design Reynoso on Instagram, and then Optika Moderna on Instagram as well. So check us out.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, just before we go, he did also last year during the pandemic, because it was the pandemic and we were all like encerrados, we were all at home, he made this play, this like online, but you had to like do like a little kaleidoscope thing. And it was so magical and so kind of like also Day of the Dead-ish and stuff. I saved the envelope because you have to, draw right to someone, and it's just guiding you and taking you. And then there's a big reveal, right?
Yeah.
And when there was that big reveal, I cried because of it's
Oh,
taking you when you really go in and you're following the instructions.
yeah.
So that was also awesome. Congratulations on that. And I hope we
Thank
see
you.
another, life, another generation of that. So more people
I
can,
would love to
can
develop that further. There was something about, yeah, it was very much a pandemic project, in which it was sort
yeah.
of like, all right, these are the constraints, but what can we still do to experiment?
Hmm.
And I think while I think there were some things about it that worked really, really well, and there's some things that I wish I could improve, it was so useful to then consider, well, what does it look like when you can, create something that that gets delivered to you? How can you still have a personal experience with someone or by yourself?
Yeah.
And I think that what I learned and gained from that, I think I'm starting to apply now in sorts of thinking of other experiences that, feel moving, or it could be funny, or it could be magical,
Yeah.
but that can be at home, or or maybe a component of which you maybe go somewhere and then take a piece of it home with you and then expand upon it elsewhere.
Hmm.
So I'm so grateful that you did that too, Alejandra, and thank
Yeah.
you for your support.
It's, yeah, of course. It's like, a journey with yourself. You're
Yeah,
not by yourself in this. And
which is where we yeah were during lockdown for sure. Yeah.
it was like that. And we have, so for people that are like, "Oh, what is this?" We have a little video on our reels in From
Oh,
Another Zero.
cool. Nice, nice.
We did the whole unpacking of the
Yep.
thing, and we did the little kaleidoscope, which is
Yeah.
really awesome. And it came to your house, and it was like, a Manila type looking folder.
Yeah.
It was very secretive, and the whole thing was a great experience, and it was a great distraction from everything that we were
Mm,
going through. And then just
yeah.
logging in and figuring it out and being like, am I doing it right, and all that. And
Right.
then the
It's
big
it's part of the fun.
reveal
Yeah.
is like,
Mm,
oh my God, it's kind of even like therapeutic a little bit.
yeah.
And I think that's also um part of your touch. I think that, again, you have the eye, you have the sensibility, but I think it's also because, there's the Mexican in there, and it's that's I think that's also something, because you always
Mhm.
integrate like our culture and stuff like that, and it's
Yeah.
it's always like, yeah, realismo mágico, magic realism.
See,
Is that all
I
right?
mean, I think of it like, I mean, it's very true. I think, what I love about, cultura mexicana, I think is this idea that both things that feel it's just a wonderful kind of layered mix of like having things that can be both joyous and mysterious and maybe
Mhm.
mournful, and there can be both light and dark, sort of all in one thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the work with Optika falls on that, and the fact that yes, there can be things that feel very joyous, very colorful, and yet there's an air of mystery to it, or there's
Mhm.
some air of it that feels a bit surreal. So the project Portaleza that we're talking about was this imagined, kind of method of being able to communicate with someone who you had, you know, sort of not seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we were. And, I think certainly the kind of data component, like this idea of kind of what does that look like? And when it was a period in which we all were mourning, kind of being apart from each other. And it made me think about how do we, um, what is the hunger that we have in terms of wanting to connect with those who are sort of still in the physical sense around us, but maybe not necessarily present.
Yeah.
Is that similar in that grieving process that happens when with those people that have departed and not wanting to connect with them? Like what would I say uh, to loved ones who have passed on? What during this moment? What I wish that I could hear back from them. I think that was a bit
Totally.
of the inspiration for that project, and it was meant to to be a bit of um, I don't know, just kind of a consideration for that, and a bit of a kind of a poetic experience without it being, um, it's something that was literally happening, but it sort of made you think like, what would I wish to be able to say to someone if I could, and what would I wish
Totally.
to hear back? Hmm.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, it kind of gave me a little bit of closure, because I didn't know what was going to
Mm,
happen. So I just like went for
mm.
it. So in the end, you're like, oh my God. But then you have your closure. So that's really good. Um, thank you again. I mean, I'm honored to, have people like you on here and
Uh,
just share with other people and maybe other creatives, and see the power of the art form and expression this
mm.
way, and in these outlets that are just so beautiful. So
Well,
thanks
Alejandra, thanks for having me.
again.
Anytime I'm here, call me up. Happy to hang
I
out.
will. Yes, I will. We need to do something in Spanish too.
That'd be awesome.
So let's do
Okay.
it. Okay. Well, take care. Happy
Muchos besos,
holidays.
Alejandra. You too.
And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Sounds great.
Yes.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.